How about a little vintage Ford Motor Company vacuum tube car radio repair resurrection bonus video this week? And we got the whole package here. This was in a in the garage with all the 50s and 60s goodies. I am not a car radio buff, so if I make a fool of myself, then that's my excuse. But we got the whole package here. We got the Ford Motor Company speaker, which has no surround anymore. And I thought it would be cool to actually put this in my car, my kind of piece of junk daily driver. I just kind of set it on the passenger floor, leaning up against the tunnel, if I could get it to work, and just, have it to listen to my morning propaganda report on KNX, which all you really need here for KNX is a detector diode. But we got the whole thing. We got the radio, which is in marginal condition. Man, they just built things to be heavy back in these days. I mean, this thing is just... And we got the antenna. So we got the whole package here. I brought out my lithium iron phosphate battery, which is 4 cells at about 3.3. So we're running a total of 13.3 volts to power this, because this is going to be an absolute current hog. This is not one of the later vacuum tube car radios with the low voltage space charge tubes. This is an old one with a vibrator and the regular high voltage plate tubes, just like a wall plug-in tabletop radio. Random. So we got a bunch of Bumblebee Black Beauties in here, which we all know these leak. I am going to just try and resurrect. I'll check the voltage across them, and if we have any that are leaky or have a high potential across them, I might change them. But I want to do the bare minimum here. This is not in prime condition. In fact, it's got a bunch of corrosion here, and the buttons all stick and hang up. I really like this little U-joint, this little leather U-joint they have for the tuning. Of course, it's slug tuned, or I guess permeability tuned. It's very cool. See, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tubes in this thing. This is the vibrator right here. Vibrator, if you're not familiar, a vibrator is a mechanical switch with 2 contacts that vibrate back and forth at 60 hertz, and they basically square wave this transformer, which steps up the voltage to, I don't know, 200 volts or whatever. I actually had the schematic on this somewhere. I forgot where it was. It found it in the garage. When you bought these cars, oh, it is a Zenith, okay. It is made by Zenith. But it says FOMOCO on it. Made in USA. Yeah, there's your vibrator. 6x5 rectifier, 6v6 audio output. Wow, they're using two 6v6s and a 6SN7. So 6SN7 is a phase inverter, and then we got push-pull audio output. Look at the size of that audio output transformer. This is a lot more. Ooh, do we have our spider here? This is a lot more than your standard AA5. This is going to be a current hog and a half, probably idles at about 12 amps. I wonder if this is a 6-volt radio. That could present a problem. This is so damn small. Are these just all patents? HDC by James, Universal Vibrator. Is it a 6-volt radio or a 12-volt radio? With all the 6-volt tubes, I would think it's a 6-volt radio. We'll have to start at 6. Guess we'll go through and check our electrolytic with the capacitor wizard before we power the radio up and potentially charge it. So, decent. 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 So the ESR on our capacitor, and this does not tell us if it's shorted or leaky or needs to be reformed. It just tells us that the ESR is there. This one here measures like it's very good or shorted. I see it uses GE number 44 lamps here, and I look up GE number 44 lamp, and it's a 6.3 volt bulb. So unfortunately, I have a feeling this is going to be a 6-volt radio, which kind of sucks, because using this in a 12-volt car would be, you'd need like a converter step-down setup or a bunch of big diodes in series, like 10 big diodes in series to cut 6 volts out of the line. Boy, it is just eerily quiet out here right now. No cars, no airplanes, no birds. Did Lockdown 2.0 start already? Anyway, I'm going to assume this is negative ground because the way the filter is installed, but I don't even know if that's relevant. Because that's probably on the high voltage side. But see, we got ground here, so we got 3 6 volts. We got nothing. You should see a spark there. Okay, it looks like there's the power switch right there. So I'm going to go on the other side of the power switch. Okay, man, we ain't even got no bamboo blants this early. Oh yeah, we have sparking now. I don't see the tube filaments, though. How about the lights? Yeah, the lights are on and they're full brightness, so it is a 6-volt set. These tubes have so many hours on them. That's what the filament burn off is. Yeah, that one's lit right there. So the vibrator is not running. That's very common. These vibrators have a very limited lifespan. They make solid state replacements these days, but they don't hold up. There's a capacitor in here somewhere. If it goes bad, it burns the contacts in the I mean, you hear it humming at 60 hertz. It's mechanical and it's zzz, right along at 60 hertz. Yeah, you can see the rectifier there is heated. So it's just vibrator is not running. Okay, I'm trying to make open this vibrator, and it's like it's all in foam. It's like it's in a foam. So you can see how it works here. This thing just vibrates, just zzz, and you can see how it opens and closes alternate contacts. So when it comes, it turns on, these close, it turns on, it comes over here, it turns the magnet off, and it closes those two. So it's like opening this one and closing this one. And this one here is dual purpose. And I think we could see the problem here if you look very closely. This one here is no longer, there's so much burned away. No one ever said it was going to be easy. Okay, so if you look at this one, it's so much burned away that it's no longer making contact. If you watch when I push on it, see how it's still closing there? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend the bottom tab up just a little bit. Can we hear that? I'm pulling a piece of sandpaper back and forth. Very like 1000 grit. Seems a lot happier now that I cleaned it. It's weird how the frame rate of the camera interacts with that, but you can see exactly, that's a good visual demonstration of what it's doing. I just kind of temporarily pinned it back together. The airplanes are starting, but I can feel it running in my hand, but I could barely hear it with all that rubber shielding. Listen, see if you could hear it if I touch it on the camera. Very quiet. You can see how the off button here operates that power switch down there. You know, so power switch is bad. Okay, here we go. It is vibrating now. It just stopped vibrating. Okay, so here's what's happening. I took this apart again and cleaned it. And the contacts were quite burnt. And then I fired it up and I listened real close. And I could hear it buzzing, and then after 20 or 30 seconds when the rectifier started warming up, I could hear it start arcing, like, you know, like arcing 60 hertz, and then it locked. So something, I have a feeling, maybe this is shorted. Something is, I mean, I would do it again so you could hear it, but it was a vicious arcing sound. So obviously the vibrator is not at fault. Something else is it. Come on, come out of here. I think what we could do is take this off of here, pull this can off, and then with a transformer, this is a 6-volt transformer, backfeed 6 volts, 60 hertz AC into the transformer that steps it up, and see what we get. So for a job like this, you got to get the meat lovers special out. You need this to heat up that. Okay, so this is a choke, and I believe this right here is that dampening capacitor that will cause the contacts to arc in the vibrator if it's bad. But from what I heard, I don't think it's this. I think it's something over here is shorted, overloading it. So what we can do is we can feed 6 volts from my like a filament transformer into here and see what happens. So we'll have to heat the filaments with the battery and then feed 6 volts, and we can watch the current. See, this is a color TV power transformer, and I'm going to use a 6.3 volt filament tap off of this. I could also just probably feed the high voltage out of this thing into here too, but I'm gonna, the big wires are the 6.3 volt filament. So we got 6.6 volts here. Really, I've got 4 amps with the filaments not heated. 4 amps. Really, 4 amps AC. What is going to blow up here? Okay, a lot of that could just be straight up power factor, so I'm just going to ignore that high current. So I've got 170 volts AC here. This is on the secondary. This is measuring it on the bottom of the rectifier tube. And I got 170 volts here. Let's see what I got between the two. $340 volts. So I got 340 volts center, or 170 volts center tapped on my rectifier tube. This is a center tap transformer in here that steps up from the vibrator. So instead of going across one of the windings, I went across both of them. And I'm only drawing 280 milliamps AC, which is a lot better than 4 amps. It's probably closer to correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power the tube filaments up now, or we're going to watch that very closely here, because I don't want to cause the rectifier tube to expire. So here we go. The power's been applied and the ground wire popped off. So here we go again. Power's been applied to the filaments from the battery. Wow. And see it. I want to be careful there. I don't want to fry that rectifier tube. Now remember, that's 3 amps, but that's at 6 volts, so you have to do the math there at how much current that is at 170 volts. Now, 3 amps doesn't seem excessive to me for the vibrator. Let me plug the speaker in. Okay, so we got just a light hum out of the speaker. And really looking for any of these that might be hot. I got the antenna connected. Oh. Thought I heard something there. Could swear I hear a station trying to come in. Definitely something trying to come in. Okay, let's see. I got 130 volts B plus, which seems low. And then I don't have any voltage on any of these other taps. I don't have anything there. I have 0.1. And what do I have here? 0.3. Is this resistor open? Is that 38, 3.8K? Is that right? I have like 0.1 on that side of it and 132 on this side of it. Ooh, boy, is that hot. Something shorted. So this is probably our secondary supply over here. So I'm on diode check right now, and this is shorted for sure. So the rest of them are not shorted. That doesn't mean the capacitor's shorted, though. It could be something else on that line. So that point is measuring 2 ohms to ground. So, you know, there's a couple different ways to find a short. You know, you start measuring stuff. In this case, I'm just going to apply 12 volts to it and see what starts smoking. You know, is it just the capacitor is... It goes right to 13 volts. You know, is it just the capacitor's leaky as hell? So I cut that capacitor out. Now we have 35 volts there. So that capacitor is definitely shorted. So do we have radio now? Sort of. But we also have very low voltage. 122 volts and 36 volts. What happens if I... ...181 volts, 55 volts. Something else is popping, like it's arcing. I would think it should be about 250 volts and 90 volts, or 250 and 100. Something's arcing occasionally, you can hear it. Hear that popping? This thing is unhappy. Okay, so they started talking about that infrastructure bill, and whatever it was popping and shorting just popped and shorted, because now we got, in fact, I don't want to do this, I'm going to blow that rectifier too, but now we got 0 volts B plus. So whatever that was, it was the infrastructure bill just finished it off. So now we've literally got 0 ohms to ground. Or not 0 ohms. Yeah, we got 0 ohms to ground on the main B plus line. So did the electrolytic short or something else? Okay, well, it's electrolytic that shorted. I cut it out. Zenith, your electrolytic car radio capacitors ain't doing too hot. That's sounding good with that surround gone. So I hope it's clear the method that I've come up with to test this, and I know it's a little confusing. But basically, this radio runs on 6 volts DC, which I'm getting from these 3.3 volt per cell lithium iron phosphate cells. And I'm only using 2 of them. And because I have the vibrator pulled out, the vibrator basically chops the 6 volts up into AC, 6 volts AC, and there's a transformer here that steps it up. Well, because I have the vibrator out, because I'm being stupid and not just replacing the electrolytic capacitor like everybody, the internet says I should without diagnosing it, I'm using this TV out of a transformer to take the 110, 120 volt line down to 6.3 volts, which is the filament for the TV, and I'm using that 6.3 volts and backfeeding it where the vibrator would create the 6 volts of AC into the transformer that steps it up into this rectifier and then out to the radio. So I hope that's clear. I'm not like drawing it out on a schematic or anything. I'm just kind of doing it and making it up as I go along. This third section is just the cathode bypass for the push-pull audio output. I don't care about that. You know, if that shorts to ground, all it would do is would just burn the output tubes up slowly, and they're already so spent. I had originally thought it would be cool to use this radio in my car, you know, just to be cool or whatever, but I don't want to try and deal with adapting a 6-volt radio to a 12-volt car. You know, there's easy ways to do it with a buck boost setup, but those produce so much noise the thing would just be static. I tacked a couple 47 microfarad at 200 volt capacitors in here. Ooh, that's interesting. It was working for a minute and then something shorted and it... Is this other section of this capacitor shorting? No, we got 21 volts there, but you heard it. Got 122 volts here now. And 35 volts there. It was working, you heard it. Okay, Weird. I power it down. I power down the filaments and I let it cool off. Then I power it up and it comes up and starts working, and then something shorts and it stops. Okay, let's try that again. Once it warms up, it dies. This really seems like a audio problem, because as I tune this, I run into stations, but they're just a blip. They're just distorted trash. Listen. Let me get the signal tracer on this thing. Wonder if the fly is getting Pfizer or Moderna right now. Okay, so check this out. I just put the filaments on.
Orange County, where more than 450 virus victims are now hospitalized. That's actually made some hospitals so full they've had to turn away ambulances.
See that? So let's try the signal tracer here. So it seems like we have the signal going into this tube.
Neighborhood very shaken.
Never seen anything like it all the years I lived here.
Police say the man who died was one of those real estate people.
And then nothing coming out. Okay, I went down to the center tap. The B plus was too low. So what I did is I went down to half the transformer, which basically gave me the 200 volts, and now I got a signal here.
The top federal income tax bracket here in the United States of America was 94%. The listeners really think about what that means. That means country, the last dollar they would earn, they'd pay 90 back to the U.S. government.
So let me trace this out. A schematic would really help. This is a 6SN7 audio amp phase inverter.
All the different strategies. So one of the most common ones, as you said, people are asking the question, do I convert or do I not? I don't think that's the question. The question...
Okay, what's going on with that tube? This is what's going into this 6V6.
The reason is people want to learn about how they can grow their money tax-free. And
this is what goes into, is what's going into the other 6V6. Nothing. So this is interesting. We got a problem in the audio output tubes.
In the Forte formula and best-selling author with Steve Forbes, Blair Aronson.
It's almost like this 6V6 is shorted.
Rushed. Can your current financial portfolio...
All I did was pull the tube out.
Market and tax pressures that could be coming at you? Give Blair Aronson from Retirement Through...
It's a bad tube.
...today for your free complimentary consultation. In this virtual appointment, Blair will address the 6...
God in us, we won't be tempted to fall down and worship people.
710 ESPN. Sadly, that applause wasn't for me. It was for the #1 rated job site in the U.S.
This sucker is shorted. This was the whole problem. So I'm checking these capacitors, the DC leakage, and it's a little leaky, not much. So I wonder if that's what was cooking the vibrator. Okay, so with this cool Ford Motor Company 6V6 that's shorted, replaced with a genuine FM Co tube. With that out of the circuit, we came up to 150 something volts on our B+. So this... Between this and the shorted electrolytic is probably what was burning the vibrator by James up. So I'm going to take the vibrator apart, clean it again, and we'll see if I can run the whole unit on 6 volts with the vibrator as designed. I love my vibrator. Okay, vibrator has been sort of reassembled and reinstalled. We are just on the batteries now. I'm going to monitor the B+. So here we go. It is vibrating. Oh, you hear it stall out? Yeah, that's a hell of an arc.
Record that was set just a day earlier, and there are now more than 1,400 virus patients being treated in local hospitals.
And then it sticks. The contacts melt together.
That has made some hospitals so full, they're having to turn away ambulances that are carrying people with other serious medical needs.
They're diverting ambulances to other hospitals. They had 16 hospitals that were beyond what the standard is.
25 offer online, SUNDAE Sunday.com. Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash? Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. Available in Oregon or West Virginia. Results vary. See website for details.
Waiting to replace your current hearing aids because of the cost. The price of Lively hearing aids will be music to your ears. Lively hearing aids cost half the price of most hearing aids, and they're backed by a 100-day money-back guarantee. Try.
I think we got a little Johnson & Johnson action going on right here. Don't play with high voltage, kids. This is what happens. Isn't this attractive? Let me know if you're enjoying this. Yeah, this thing is just, the contacts are just dead. The voltage just keeps dropping as the contacts get dirty. Let's see if we could do a current draw. So, just the filaments by themselves, 3.3 amps. Come on, we don't want to vibrate with that there. So say about 6 amps, because I got a lot of drop in this wire. I could go up to 9 volts for a second. Oh.
Distance number 3, only about 4 million. All LA County Superior Court employees will be required to get fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
Absolutely.
To submit proof of, or, that is, face termination.
The new policy for the largest trial court in the nation mandates vaccination as a condition of employment no later than 45 days after final FDA approval has been given to at least one vaccine.
FDA approval. It's that incremental frog in the pot of hot water. You just slowly implement. Just take a little bit more away, then a little bit more away, then a little bit more, and then boom, you take it all away. So anyway, I'm sure that'll get me some dislikes and some hate mail, but whatever. So what do we need here? Well, originally I thought, as I've said probably 4 times, this would be cool to actually kind of use a little bit, but being 6 volts, it doesn't lend itself to that for me. So, what would it need to get this thing in tip-top performance. And I bet when this was new, it was one hell of a performer. Zenith long-distance radio. I bet this thing would keep up with the best of the transoceanics. So what would it need? It would need a new vibrator or some type of replacement for the vibrator. It would need a complete recap. Need all these Bumblebee Black Beauty things replaced. New electrolytics. We obviously got issues with tubes. It would need probably the tubes gone through. It would need this. This doesn't really work very well. So it would need this lubricated or whatever, and then probably a complete alignment. Is a 262 kilocycle IF, not 454. All car radios do that. But I guess this is just a resurrection, and it played again. It's probably retired sometime in the 70s. Upgraded for an AM/FM solid state. Or maybe they converted the car to 12 volts. They converted the car to 12 volts and the radio wasn't easy to deal with, so they just put a modern solid state radio in it.
The vaccinated because that variant could evade the protection of the vaccine. The recent surge in coronavirus cases is largely driven by the Delta variant.
Okay, so I forgot that I had bought a couple of these. These are these little Chinese 12 to 250 volt adjustable dealy spoilers, and right now I have it adjusted to 179 volts, and I have the vibrator out, and I'm just feeding it right into the B plus line, and you'll hear the noise that it puts out here.
Hard infrastructure off the table. Feel much more difficult politically. 2 balls and 1 strike.
So hear that? That's noise from that thing. It'll put out 247 volts wide open.
All about the victory. It's all about enforcement.
Hey! Seems like the noise went away with it at wide open voltage, 246 volts output. I guess it stopped duty cycling. Maybe it's duty cycling the little switching mode supply that's driving the transformer. It's getting kind of hot though.
Winter's a little easier.
Thank you so much, Pat. It's always a pleasure to have a great conversation.
At Colorado Street and Ashton. When they come through the drive-thru, A and Chick-fil-A is for all the little things we do to bring you our best every day. Real team member paid for the test.
Getting warm. It's not hot.
Super nutrients, as we like to say, are a green tea extract, a turmeric extract called curcumin, and an extract from red wine called resveratrol. And apropos of what you said about my traveling around the world, I've extensively investigated these in their host countries. So I've been in the green tea plantations of China.
Boy, as soon as you back it off a wide open, it just starts screaming.
Conclusion is that green tea, curcumin from turmeric root, and
The reason why it sounds like distorted and kind of half audio is because I got one half of the push-pull out. But that thing actually works wide open. I think if you put this in a box with appropriate filtering, maybe a choke in a metal box where you could shield the noise it's emitting, it would probably actually power this pretty well. And I'm running it off of 12 volts. So I have the radio filaments on the 6-volt tap. I have this running on the 12-volt tap. So just thought I'd throw that in there at the end. It works. Noisy, but it works.
You can make a